So you were pushing your way through the crowd in Washington, D.C. to the platform, and then you saw Reverend Martin Luther King, right?
Yes, I saw Martin Luther King. As a matter of fact, I was attending Ball State University, so myself and my brother, my older brother, and a few of the students, we traveled. We drove from Muncie, Indiana to Washington, D.C., which was crazy at the time, but we were young and wanted to see Martin Luther King and be involved in the movement, the March on Washington. And it was great. It was really great. We had trouble getting there, but we made it. And my relationship with his whole persona was not very good. I knew of Martin Luther King. I knew that my dad had some affiliation with him in school down south. I knew that some things about Martin Luther King, but I didn't know that much. I was just excited just to get on the road and enjoy myself. Um, and when we got to Washington D.C., I eventually broke away from the crowd, from my friends, my brothers. I broke away from everybody just to be on my own, and I took off. And I got a sign, and we started to march and to walk down Pennsylvania Avenue, etc., and so forth. It was really, really, really great. Really great. It's an experience I've never had before. More people I've ever seen in my whole life. It was wonderful. And in doing so, when I broke away from the group, which was a no-no, because there was so many people there, you can get lost. I, in my ignorance of process and procedure, I went all the way up to the stage. I didn't know that I wasn't. Maybe I knew, but I didn't pay attention to all of that. So I went all the way up to above and beyond the barriers and the wooden horses that were sitting there saying you cannot go beyond this. I just went in, and I went in, and because I think I was um, by myself, people just thought that I must have been a part of everything that was going on. And I wasn't. I was just looking at everybody. I was mystified by Ralph Abernathy, who was Martin Luther King's sidekick in the movement, and other people. Bayard Rustin was there. Oh, so many great people were there. And I was just like, I cannot believe I'm standing here looking at these great people. I not only, as I remember, I not only was mystified, but I was almost stationary in my position. I just stared and I stared at them and stood there without moving, without doing anything but listening. So I heard the whole Martin Luther King speech. I saw everything, and I was isolated in my thinking. It was almost like I was in another world. Of course, I was eventually awakened by the police telling me to move on, young man. But I was just so inspired, and I was so mystified by everything that was happening. And it was an experience that I've never had like that in my whole life. At the time, yes, Martin Luther King was all in the news, did so many things. However, still there was a dislocation because we didn't know him. I didn't know him that well, but after that March on Washington, I felt like he was a friend, to the extent that eventually I wrote a monologue entitled Martin Boosie and Me. about that, about some similarities to that experience. Yeah. So that was one of my greatest experiences that I've ever had. I have not shared it that much, but it was a great experience.
Do you remember how you felt? You and you know Sonny and your friends. I mean, what was the spirit?
With the spirit on our way up there, or while we were there,
Both, you know.
on our way
Um,
up there, we were bored as hell because we had nothing to do but ride in the car. So we played games. We played intellectual games. You know,
about the fly.
yeah, about the fly. Of course, you know
Okay.
about that. And we try to trip each other up intellectually. And we talked about books that we had read, and I brought some books along with me. I
Do you
lost them.
remember?
No, I lost them. I think one of them was "Stranger in a Strange Land," Robert Heinlein. I think I brought that along with me, even though I've read it probably 4 or 5 times. But it's my favorite book. And so but we had a good time being with each other, laughing and joking and being young. And one of the difficulties was we had to go through small towns, and as an African American, that's not a very likely place that you want to stop and get some refreshments or stop and use a washroom. We had to pick and choose the places that we stopped because it was dangerous. And we lived in Indiana. Although our trip took us way out of Indiana, we still were afraid. Sometimes we couldn't find a restroom. Sometimes we weren't allowed to use the restrooms. Often we were denied food if we wanted to get a sandwich, or they just didn't pay any attention to us. Those kind of things. Then we had to go through the whole process again, coming back. But coming back was a breeze. Going up there was kind of difficult. So yeah, it was great, and it's a tearjerker because we talked about our the things that happened to us, and there was tears and there was excitement and joy. But this was before the fact of the whole movement of Martin Luther King, which meant that the effect of the March on Washington and seeing Martin Luther King really didn't come in 2 years afterwards, after the experience. But I was standing there looking at him, staring at him. It was an unbelievable occasion.